Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys from Africa, you know we love the Big C tribe. We love them in Canada, but there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free and the home of the brave, on a beautiful September the 4th, 2018. We're waiting for Big C to call in. I think he's down there fishing again. Big C, the way that you fish, you're not going to leave any fish in the ocean. Big C's one of the only guys that I know that goes fishing and leaves the boat behind. So obviously those fish don't have any hope of succeeding. I do want to say there's a lot of good things happening in the sports universe, especially when you look at the world of football. And I know there's so many people that want to talk about the state of football, but football's a great sport. We know baseball's also great. I do want to look forward to the Big C Sports app coming out. We'll be launching that for a kickoff for the NFL football season. You can get real sports talk worldwide by downloading the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. We cover all the sports for you, whether it's NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, the UFC, United States Soccer League, and of course NCAA sports. You can hear it on the Big C Sports Network. Also coming to you live, television, doing specials with some of the top athletes in the country. We'll have real sports talk, more involved with what they're doing for faith, family, and fun. But I do want to start today's show. Just an odd thing happened to me just today. And I know this world right now is full of a lot of things that are, say, emotionally charged. And there are times when people say we can't be friends unless we see eye to eye. What a strange way to have a friendship. I think you have better friends when you don't always see eye to eye, because you're going to get their opinion. And if their opinion is always yours, then it's really not anything different to learn from. So long story short, we know there's a lot of talk about who the top football program is in the country, and who the top basketball program and baseball program is in the country. But I want to take it a little bit step, further than that. When it comes to media, who actually has the right in the media that covers pro athletes, entertainers, Hollywood, to tell you who's right or wrong? I know there have been some friendships that have been ended over someone having a difference of opinion. I do want to say today's segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And you go by and test drive yours. Tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. So when I was talking to a couple of friends just over the weekend, we were talking about who has the better sports programs. Is it the SEC? Is it the Pac-12? Is it the ACC? Is it the Big Ten? Well, that's all a matter of opinion. But what I do know, there are times when I was talking to a good friend about just some things going on with the thing that Nike is doing with Colin Kaepernick, and ironically, there's such vitriol. We'll have Big C chime in just a second. Such vitriol with people saying, well, I will never buy Nike again because they're endorsing Colin Kaepernick, yet they believe in the land of the free, the home of the brave, and freedom of expression. And I asked a good friend of mine, I said, so what would you do if someone had accused you of doing something you didn't do? And the whole world, at least half of the people, believed them, and no one ever came to your defense. Would that make you have less respect for yourself telling the truth? And she said, well, no, but I can't understand why someone would disrespect the military. I said, that's not what I asked you. I asked you if someone accused you of doing something that you did not do, and half the world turned against you, would you have less respect for people who showed up and actually defended you? She said, well, we'll have to talk about that another time. Big C, there's still people that don't want to hear anything that Colin has to say because they have their own prejudices. It just takes people like this, Make America Great Again, to pull it out. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, the prejudice against Colin Kaepernick is unreal and unfounded. When you think about Nike's stance, and Nike has gotten a lot of backlash for this, Charlton. People say, well, Nike, will Kaepernick take a stance for the people who make Nike shoes because they're made in third world countries and the wage of labor there is really low. Well, I don't think those Americans really understand the wage of labor in the United States. We have 13 states here in the United States, Charlton,
yep,
that still operate under Jim Crow law. And what people need to understand, look at what you make on your paycheck by the hour or however. Under Jim Crow law, it allows an employer to pay you as little as $2.35 an hour.
Wow.
In 2018, Charlton, in the United States of America, an employer in 13 states in America can pay an employee as low as $2.13 an hour. So when you say that somebody's against America, they're anti-American, that's anti-American, Charlton.
Yeah.
That's below slave wages when you're paying an American citizen that type of wages. But when you look at Nike's stance, the stance that Nike takes, Nike stands behind their endorsed athletes, Charlton.
Yep.
When you look at what they've done over the years, they stood behind Michael Jordan when he was involved in a gambling scandal.
Yep.
They didn't cut ties with Michael Jordan.
Nope.
They stood behind Lance Armstrong, the cyclist,
Yep.
when he was involved in a doping scandal, Charlton.
Yep.
They didn't throw away Lance Armstrong. They stood with Kobe Bryant when he had these sexual allegations in Colorado, Charlton.
Yep.
They didn't walk away from Kobe Bryant, nor has Nike walked away from any great athlete they had. Tiger Woods. We saw what happened with Tiger Woods years ago, over a decade ago.
Yeah.
Nike was right there beside Tiger Woods the whole time, Charlton. So when you look at what Colin Kaepernick and Nike have partnered up in, Nike just signed a new 8-year deal with the NFL.
Yep.
Nike does not have to disclose to anybody what they do. But also, when you look at what Colin Kaepernick's doing, that's still part of the NFL because of his collusion lawsuit.
Yeah.
He has not left the annals of the NFL. And if the NFL wanted to cut ties with Colin Kaepernick, Charlton, why do they still produce his game jersey under NFL licensed apparel?
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yep.
Colin Kaepernick's jersey, his NFL jersey, even though he has not played since 2016, Charlton, last year was one of the top 10 selling jerseys of NFL apparel.
Yeah.
So when people think that, people don't want to hear about Colin Kaepernick, that he's there's a lot of NFL fans out there, Charlton, that are buying his paraphernalia.
Yeah.
So when these people say, well, he's anti-American, anti-military, no, he is not.
No.
What you are is that you're being a racist and trying to find an scapegoat by using Colin Kaepernick's name in your racist vitriol.
Yeah.
So Colin Kaepernick is not the culprit of the injustice that we have in America. He just made America very aware of it from his stance as a professional athlete, and people were offended by that because he brought more attention than what they wanted to hear about that they were living every day, Charlton.
Yeah, and ironically, I pulled a John McCain, Big C, when she went into this thing about Colin Kaepernick and how isn't the country doing great under POTUS? And all I said was, Google the Central Park 5 and Google the Mueller report and Google the collusion, Google all those things, but don't just point out your economy, because at some point in time, and this is where I've always had some issue with my former brethren on TV and even on radio. We don't have to be right. You can be wrong. Sometimes it's good to have friends who don't agree with you. That's what the late Senator McCain did. There's something called a League of Rivals, or a Team of Rivals, that was a favorite book that President Obama read. And I know McCain had that same practice where they would have their adversaries, not because they didn't like each other, but they just saw things differently. So I said to my friend, as she was trying to get me to be dumb, like the dumb guys that are too stupid to know when someone's calling them the N-word in front of their own face, when she says, well, don't you think the economy is great? I just said, Google the largest lawsuit against African Americans in New York State. You'll find Trump at the head of that. How am I going to be ignorant and applaud that garbage? Especially when it happened to me also. So as I brought that up to that person, I also said no one ever said anti-flag anything. It was a military gentleman that supported Kaepernick. It was never about the flag. But at the same time, Big C, I was proud that John McCain was not maybe he was African-American in spirit because he couldn't please everybody, but he did stand up for righteousness. And it just happened to me again, but I didn't stand up for it either. I say Google it, the Central Park 5, the lawsuits, the housing discrimination, Google all that stuff. Don't just tell me it's about a knee if you don't read. Big C, your thoughts.
Well, Chelsea, when you look at Nike's base is 6 months to 40 years old.
Yep.
That's the base of Nike apparel. They buy 2/3 of all Nike apparel. That's who they're appealing to. When you look at the base of the NFL, Charlton, it runs realistically from 12 to 39.
Yeah.
So Nike went into their wheelhouse as far as their apparel followers. They don't care about the outer fringe. I mean, a third of their market, it's there. It's, back and forth.
Yeah.
But they went to 2/3 of their base when they addressed this ad, Charlton, as far as who is going to pay attention. When you look at Nike on television every day, if there's a sporting event on, who do you see?
Yep.
You see Nike, whether it's the NFL, whether it's college football, whether it's Major League Baseball, whether it's professional soccer, the NBA, the WNBA, Charlton. You see Nike on 2/3 of all the professional athletes in America.
Yeah.
And probably 50% of the collegiate athletes, Charlton,
yeah.
in America. So Nike has its base. So if you think that Nike's base is going to walk away from them, Charlton, these coaches have contracts with Nike.
Yep.
And these are the coaches who funnel these young men into the next level. You go to a high school game, Charlton, you see Nike everywhere. You go to a Pop Warner game, you see Nike everywhere. So when people say that, Nike is being negative about this ad with Colin Kaepernick, no, they're being proactive, Charlton.
Yep.
Nike has been proactive in everything that they've done throughout their history, from the time that Phil Knight pressed his first pair of shoes in the back of his Volkswagen at the University of Oregon.
Yeah.
Nike has always been proactive. And so when you see them, they've always played in the political arena, Charlton. They haven't backed down.
No.
They've been very vocal with their ads, and 30 years of just do it means something. It means that it has legs and it's not going to go away right away.
Yeah.
You'll always have some disgruntled people, Charlton. I don't care what you do. And these little frivolous YouTube ads that they throw out there.
Yep.
You have to understand, it's just like when people burn LeBron's jersey. Remember that a few years ago?
I recall that.
When he left Cleveland?
Yep.
Where did those jerseys come from? It came out of that person's pocket.
Yep.
Okay? That person paid for that jersey. LeBron didn't pay for that jersey.
No.
The Cleveland Cavaliers didn't pay for that jersey. Just like those shoes that the people want to burn on these YouTube little shots.
Yeah.
Nike still profited from you burning those shoes. You think Nike was bothered by that?
Probably.
No, it went to Nike's bottom line.
Yeah.
So all you were doing was doing more advertising for Nike. And I think that's the stupidity of people who want to do these posts.
Yeah.
Is that, well, I'll burn these Nike shoes.
Yep.
Okay, there's a Nike emblem getting advertising.
Yeah.
Getting advertising.
Yeah.
It means that product is hot.
Yeah.
Okay? If they don't understand the symbolism that they're doing for Nike,
yeah,
that's a hot product right now, hot commodity.
Yep.
So set them on fire. Nike's turning the profit. They're not bothered.
You know what's funny? I knew this one guy, he had a girl break up with him. In order to get back at his girlfriend that broke up with him and started dating another guy, he broke his phone. I said, why would you break your phone? He said, that way I don't have to see your pictures anymore. I said, why do you got to break? You could just delete. He could have hit the delete button, Big C. But, sometimes people do crazy things. Last thing I want to say about that, because I see why Senator McCain must have had a black spirit, because he saw bigotry. And sometimes my mainstream brother and the bigots know who I'm talking about, because you'll say things in private that you won't say in public. But you think that I'm dumb enough to let you say it to me, but you can't do it. I'll call you out in public. But there are people who say they're listening to the economy great. At the same time, they're hoping and praying that a black man cannot find employment. Isn't that something? They're praying that the economy is great, but they're hoping and praying that a black man can't find employment because he wants them to Google inequality and the Kerner report. That creates anathema for him, telling you to be intelligent. So, and it's not always a race thing, but my goodness, it just happened to me. And so I don't like stupid people, and I'll always shout them down. I don't need your friendship. I don't want bigots in my sphere of influence. If you are, at least be proud about it and wear it on your shoulder. That's one thing I respect about some real bigots. They let you know it. They don't smile on your face and pat you on the back and say, hey, bro, let's get a beer. And they're telling the N-word jokes like the guy at Papa John's Pizza when you're not around. Big C, I want to ask him, which college team, of all the great football we've seen, and I got a little bit of extra spice in my emotion today because I love college football. It does that to me. And oftentimes when I meet stupid people, it does that to me also. Sometimes the people that are the most dumb are the ones you know, but they've been hiding for so long behind that smile on their face and the, hey, brother, praise God. But they pray to God that a black man can't find work, but a guy who did the the Central Park 5 advertisement in the paper in New York, they're praising him. Now, if you're praising him, then you're anti-me and my children. I don't need your friendship. Big C, which college teams or head coaches had the most difficult loss in the opening weekend? Now, I think it's going to be Tom Herman at Texas because they got rid of Strung to bring in this good old boy, one of their own, to start winning. Some people say it's Jim Harbaugh because he went to Michigan. I think that buys him some favor. And some say Chris Peterson at Washington. I don't blame Washington and Chris Peterson for not knowing how to do a three-step drop and throw the ball as opposed to having Brownie scramble. He's not able to. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you're correct in a lot of those, Charlton, and you got to throw a couple more coaches in that also. You got to look at Mark Richt down at University of Miami. This was a team that last year lived by the turnover chain.
Yeah.
31 turnovers.
Yep.
And they couldn't get it done the other night, in that game against LSU.
Yeah.
You also got to look at Willie Taggart. There was a reason why Jimbo Fisher left Florida State, and it was more than just the $75 million. He knew that the cupboard was a little bare down there.
Oh, yeah.
And yet Florida State couldn't find any offense against Virginia Tech.
No.
But I look at Mark Herman, when you look at a university from an economic base, Charlton.
Yep.
The University of Texas is in the top 5 economically, athletically in the United States. They are second to none in their facilities. Charlton, they even have their own network, which is just like Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Notre Dame has their own television network, which is NBC.
Yeah.
But Texas has the Longhorn network. They don't share a network with the conference. You think about that. There's the Pac-12 network. There's the Big Ten network. There's the SEC network.
Yep.
Texas has its own network. They
Yeah.
brought in Herman, who was a renowned offensive coordinator at Ohio State, under Urban Meyer.
Urban Meyer, yep.
He goes to the University of Houston. He said that was his dream job. He would never leave. Just like with the problem with Zach Smith at Ohio State,
Yeah.
he wasn't truthful. So there's a history of that with people from Ohio State. So when Herman went to Texas,
yeah,
and they got rid of Charlie Strong, saying that Charlie couldn't recruit and couldn't play. Texas wasn't devoid of talent when he arrived there.
Nope.
Okay, he had players. But it's proven back-to-back years, Charlton, he cannot handle Maryland. Maryland is just as athletically equipped as Texas is. And people say, well, they were playing with emotion.
Yep.
Last time I checked, everybody walked on the field had some emotion.
Even the coaches, yep.
And some talent also.
Yeah.
So when you go out there and you get outplayed, and the thing that I've always wondered, Charlton,
yeah,
they will put it on players. They say, well, the depth wasn't there. They're not as deep as they should be. In a couple of more years, they'll have the depth and they'll have the recruits that they need.
Yeah.
So what they were saying is that every year that this university has gone out and recruited and has a top 15 recruiting class, Charlton, that the players are no good.
Yep.
Why do they not blame the coaches, Charlton, when teams lose and have lackluster performances? Jim Harbaugh, for say, he goes out and gets this transfer quarterback. He still can't produce.
Yep.
We see this with Herman, not being able to win back-to-back years on Labor Day against Maryland.
Yeah.
So when we go up and down the list, Charlton, we look at Kelly out at UCLA.
Yeah, Kelly.
Very lackluster game out there, and people had all these high expectations. But they got to remember Kelly's last coaching job was in the NFL.
Yep.
And that was very lackluster also. So he's been removed from the game, so you know what to expect from John Gruden when the Raiders kick off.
Yeah. I tell you what, that's something that you bring up. I got to take another look at this. I look at Auburn and Washington, and I know Peterson he's as fine a coach as there is out there, but it's about how you adjust to situations too. Auburn should have won that game, and Washington should have won that game. They were equally matched. So I praise, I congratulate Malzahn for scheduling that game, and I congratulate Peterson for scheduling that game, because had Auburn lost that game when Washington was called for a pick that would have given them the go-ahead touchdown, and some people say it wasn't a pick, it's in the eye of the guy who's throwing the flag, right? But let's say Washington wins that game. You know what kind of scrutiny Auburn would be under today? There'd be people calling for the firing their head coach. They're not calling for the firing of the head coach at Washington and Peterson, because it's a little bit different climate, Big C, when an SEC team loses compared to a Pac-12 team loses. There's no calling for getting Chip Kelly out of there saying he's too old. There's no call for that whatsoever. But I do think that with Peterson, he has a valid argument, because there's a lot of people at Washington that saying Auburn could not afford to lose that game at home. About 90 miles is where their stadium's located from the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So there are people who thought a lot of calls went against them. And not everyone can say that. But I do know one thing that I saw. Browning is not good when he gets out of the pocket. He has to stay in the pocket. So when you blitz him, you force him out of the pocket. And that's Peterson and their offensive line has to get better. But that was a well-coached game. So I would say it's Harmon, Big C. I would say it's Harmon at Texas because there's a lot of them good old boys down in Texas that never really gave Strong a chance. Would you agree with that, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, we're talking, he was unwanted from day one.
Day one.
He was the best guy for the job, but he was unwanted by the blue bloods down there from day one, Charlton.
Yeah.
They were never going to back him. And if he had went 10-2 his first year, they'd have had a problem with the 2 losses, Charlton.
Yeah.
But you also got to look at there was a lot of undermining that's going on down there. You know, Booth is telling players, don't worry about it. We'll have him out of here.
Yep.
And we'll get the coach that we want.
Yeah.
That's what they did, Charlton. And that happens on every level, whether it's in high school, college. That goes on. We can get this guy out of here.
Yeah.
We can get the coach in here. We understand you may not have the legacy that you want as a player, but we'll have the guy to get our university back. I mean, look at what happened in Nebraska with Scott Frost.
Yeah.
You know, Scott Frost was hired before he even finished coaching down in Florida.
Yep.
And everybody said, you know, this is the second coming of Jesus. You know, we saw what happened in his first game. Noah showed up and figured it out.
Yeah.
But, you know, so when you think about it, you have to be careful what you ask for.
Yeah.
Because when these players get to a point that they can't play, where they're not motivated, they're losing intentionally, Charlton. How do you restart the motivation?
Yep.
You know, once you get a losing mentality, you go out there, Charlton, and you don't know how to win. So last year, they blamed it on Charlie Strong that Herman's players, well, you know, they were strong players.
Yeah.
So they hadn't adapted to a system. Okay, now he's had a second season, Charlton, coming out, and the results have been identical. He gets blown out by Maryland.
Yeah.
So if you look at Herman, Charlton, he loses 5 or 6 games this year, which he's in line to do. I mean, when you look at the Big 12, I mean, Oklahoma, Charlton, played as well as anybody could play. You look at what they did to Florida International.
Yeah.
And Lane Kiffin had a top-ranked team last year.
Yep.
Had one of the top rushers in the nation. Kids scored the most touchdowns than anybody in the nation last year, Charlton. They won 10 games. Oklahoma had started sitting, Charlton, midway through the second quarter.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how good they played. Their quarterback, Kyler Murray, Charlton, was 9 of 11, 200-plus yards and 2 touchdowns. People said Tualoga played a great game. Look at what Kyler Murray did, Charlton, in about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
He outplayed Tualoga, and he's a sophomore also who sat on the bench.
Yeah.
So when you talk about quarterbacks playing well, you got to look at Murray. He outplayed Tualoga. And Oklahoma, Charlton, may be a better team than what they were last year. We saw what Oklahoma State did. They blew out their opponent, Charlton.
Yeah.
So Texas has a real rough road ahead. Baylor won. So a lot of teams in that conference, Charlton, were victorious. It's not going to be an easy road for Tom Herman. But at the end of the year, all of his, you know, his preponderance on the broadcast and everything, they'll have his back. You know, he's still building his players. There's no excuse, you know, because they don't have the talent in Texas. That will be the story. Yeah. That they don't have the talent yet. They don't have the depth yet. They don't have the coach yet. That's the problem.
Well, even with that, Strong went down to Florida where he got a fair chance, and I believe they were 10-2 regular season down there with the Bulls. But it's about being wanted where you go, and that's just part of the sports business. You gotta one thing that sports will teach everyone.
You said he was 10-2.
Yeah.
The players that he had there in Florida, they were there when he arrived, wasn't they?
Yeah, sure were.
Just like the players that Herman had were there in Texas when he arrived, wasn't it?
Yep.
And Strong had twice as many victories as Herman.
Yeah, but see, there you go again, Big C. You always want to talk about the facts. Can't you just be emotional like some of the media pundits, Big C? Because they're going to call it fake news when you do. So just on that point that you brought up, so why is it in college when a team loses, they say a team doesn't have the talent or the depth? They blame, instead of blaming the coach. I want to ask it to you this way. When a coach can up and go anywhere he wants, you know, look at Orgeron. For some reason, he won at LSU, and they still don't like him. Maybe it's because of his voice. But you know how the NFL wants that prodigal quarterback, that certain profile, that ethnic profile? Maybe in college, do coaches also face that discrimination, because even though Lane Kiffin's kind of the America's darling as a give this guy a chance wherever he goes, Raiders, Tennessee, Southern Cal, now Florida International, but Orgeron, of all the people who were expected to be on the hot seat after this loss, because everyone thought they were going to lose to Miami outside of Baton Rouge, now that he won, they're not being as hard on the Rick that he beat as they are in praising him. I think he might be one of the least respected coaches in coaching. And why do you think that is, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, it's amazing that what he has gone through, Charlton, in just trying to get and keep a head coaching job. He's been overlooked on many occasions since he was a head coach at Mississippi years ago. And he's bounced around with assistant coaching jobs, even when he was an intern coach, Charlton, out there in Southern California.
Yep.
He had a winning record, but it still wasn't good enough to keep the job. They gave it to Clay Helton.
Yep.
And he had to move on, Charlton. He came to LSU, took the interim title there. After Les Miles was released, they gave him the head coaching job, Charlton. He had a decent job last year, but now, this is his first full season.
Yeah.
As the head coach. He gets off to a sterling start, Charlton, winning his first game against the top 10 ranked team in Miami. So he has a lot to look forward to, Charlton. He has a quarterback, a transfer from Ohio State who had graduated. And that's one of the things I like that Urban Meyer did. He told the kid, look, you graduated. I'm going with somebody else. I'm going with Haskins, the quarterback.
Yeah.
I'm giving you an opportunity to transfer out now where you can go play. He gave it to him last year, Charlton, in the spring. Okay? The kid left and went to LSU and won the starting job.
Yeah.
So Urban Meyer is not all bad. He gave the young man a chance where he wasn't going to play at Ohio State. He was honest with it. Think about how many coaches are not honest with players, Charlton.
Yep.
In anything, whether you recruit them or whether you got them on the roster. I mean, we see that with going on at Alabama right now. Nick Saban should just tell Jalen Hurts, look, transfer. Go in the red shirt and transfer. That way you got 2 years left. Yeah. Don't sit around here trying to compete with Tua, because all you're going to do is get a mop-up role right now. Unless he gets hurt, that's the only way that you're going to be the starter. Yeah. That's what Nick Saban should do. Throw his ego away and say, look, I'm going to look out for the young man's future. Yep. I'm going to let this other young man redshirt, let him transfer out of here. He'll graduate in December, and he'll go somewhere, and he doesn't have to redshirt, and he still has 2 years left. Yeah. That's about his future, not about mine. That's about his. And many coaches don't look at that, Charlton. So when these coaches leave universities, Charlton, that should be an open door for players to leave also. I agree. You should not be held under your scholarship. You should have the option to transfer without sitting out, just like these coaches have the option to leave without sitting out. Jimbo Fisher took the $75 million guarantee. Yep. He didn't have to sit out a game. Yeah. He coached Thursday night at Texas A&M, won his opening game, Charlton, 59-7. Yeah. Got huge praise. But anybody who wanted to leave Florida State is met with resistance, Charlton, and has to sit out. Yeah. So don't have a double standard with the coaches. They're already making millions of dollars, and you're making excuses for them every day. When they can't win and they just come in, well, he's with the other guy's player. He hasn't built up the depth. Yeah. He hasn't brought in the players that he needs to play in his system. I kind of think, Charlton, before these coaches show up, they look at what's on the table. They know what meal is being served.
They tend to know what they're going to eat. I understand that, Big C. Yeah. Yep.
So they know the players that are in-house. Yeah. You're not going to get a coach, pay him $75 million, no, and your team was 1-11 the year before.
Yeah, unless you're the Oakland Raiders or something of that nature. So let me ask you then, because when I get it back, you know how you eat a big meal and it's so good, but you have some leftovers, and you're glad you have leftovers because they oftentimes taste better when that food can marinate in the leftovers the next day. When I think about what happened for this college football kickoff, I was so excited about so many things, and among all of them is I feel young again. Big C, I went to the gym this morning. I did an extra 10 sit-ups just because I want to have that six-pack like some of them guys out there in the football field, but I'm paying for it today. I want to ask you this thought. When we talk about, and you brought it up yesterday about Alabama and how long they'll go before they play a ranked team. The SEC has 7 teams in the top 25. Alabama, Georgia, Auburn, LSU, Mississippi State, or them good old boys down south call it Mississippi State, South Carolina, and Florida. Well, tell me what that means. Is it because they're not scheduling big? Auburn had the biggest non-conference scheduled game this weekend against Washington. Last year, Georgia did that same thing when they took on Notre Dame at Notre Dame. And Alabama also scheduled big last year when they took on Florida State, which was not as good as we thought. So no matter what happened with the loss, and they're going to blame Taggart, Florida State wasn't a good team last year. That was not under Taggart. Okay, so maybe that program has lost its groove or its mojo or something. But are SEC teams not scheduling big the way Auburn did? Is that why they're easy to climb into the top 25? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charleston, the proof is in the pudding when you look at their early schedules, Charleston. They don't have people on their schedule that rank in the top 25.
I was noticing that.
So, it's very easy. I mean, LSU was the only team with a top 25 game this past weekend playing Miami. Everybody else played somebody that was unranked and stayed in the rankings. So when you think about that,
well, I think Tennessee played West Virginia, but they got waxed by about 3 or 4 touchdowns though. So that's the second one that did. Big C, your thoughts?
Ironically, Tennessee is the only SEC team to lose. This weekend. When you think about that entire conference, you had one team to lose, and that was Tennessee. And West Virginia was a good team, and we talked about that. Hal Greer, the quarterback.
He's off the hook.
I also understand Greer started his career at Florida. So he was an SEC quarterback, Charleston, prior to transferring to West Virginia to go into Dana Holgerson's passing offense. So, but when you look up and down the ledger at those teams that all won, Charleston, they didn't play ranked teams.
No.
The one team there's 2 teams that took on ranked teams. One of them lost, and that was Florida. But Florida wasn't much expected of them anyway, Charleston. Dan Mullen coming back, former offensive coordinator there after he left Mississippi State. He was down there under Urban Meyer. They didn't have a lot on campus when he got there, and that's the thing. They'll say, if there's not a lot on campus, it's always going to be blamed on the coach. I mean the players. The coach will get a pass, and that's the pass he got. They said, well, it wasn't a lot there to work with. Why did you fire McElwain? If you're going to fire a guy because he doesn't have a lot to work with, well, that's kind of oxymoron, isn't it?
I
say, well, he doesn't have a lot to work with, but we're going to bring
we
this
gotta
other
get
guy
rid
in,
of you.
give him $5 million, and when he loses, we're going to blame it on the guy that used to be here. Well, he didn't leave him a lot to work with. That's like going to a construction site and trying to build a house and there's no lumber there.
And you fire the contractor. Or it could be like, give a guy $100 million at an NFL team that doesn't have a history of winning, made the playoff one time in the last decade, and then that coach comes in and gets rid of your best player and say, I didn't know what happened. No one talked to me about it. That makes no sense to me at all. I do want to say that sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry. And for every athletic and sporting event, you need athletic and event insurance. We work with Ben and Mark. They've been with Big C Sports. They work with pro players, collegiate players, your high school players, even your mom and pop soccer leagues. And when you reach out to them, let her know Big C sent you. I do want to also mention you can follow the #1 sports show in the universe when you follow the Big C Sports on the Big C Sports app, launching for kickoff for the NFL this 2018 season. We'll bring you more of that later in this week. I do want to ask you a question because we talked about the SEC, and people can Google that, especially your friend Paul Feinbaum. You guys cousins, or you just drink beer together? You guys should probably meet and have some moonshine and some of that deep fried catfish to talk about that.
He got bigger ears than I got, so he hears more than what I do.
I like Paul. He's cool people. But I look at the Pac-12 conference because you talked about the SEC not scheduling ranked opponents, but they get climbed up in the polls every year. Pac-12 conference out here, my brethren, Big C. They suffered losses this past weekend. Arizona, the great UCLA under Chip Kelly. Oregon State I won't give Oregon State a loss. They just didn't show up. They forgot they had a game in Columbus. They were waiting for that game to happen in Corvallis. Okay, and then Washington. I'm going to side on the side of the Washington State media because that was not a pick. If it's a pick, it's not called a lot. And if it's a pick, then why do they allow other teams to run that play? Maybe their receivers should have turned his back. But I don't see where that's called a pick a lot, Big C. That's just a thought, and The media down south says, no, it was a pick. Out west, they say it was not a pick, etc. But who's on the hot seat? The Pac-12, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, Kevin Sumlin comes out there with much hoopla, in Arizona, and, he has a lackluster offense in game one, and he had a returning quarterback, Charlton, that there was a lot expected of.
Yeah.
And so you have to think about his situation down there in Arizona.
Yeah.
And you think about Herm Edwards, who hadn't coached since I was probably a teenager.
Yep.
And he came out and won his first game at Arizona State.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you look at the state of Arizona, you really got to give Herm Edwards some credit. You got to think about where's Kevin Sumlin now, the scrutiny that he's going to go under.
Yeah.
But, Chip Kelly, a lot of people had a lot of hoopla, but you got to understand, that program that he inherited from Bellotti at Oregon was already intact.
Yeah.
Okay? And he had the players already on staff to run the scheme that he was running. I think it was Mazzoli that was the quarterback that he had.
At Oregon, yep.
Right off the bat. And so, he lost his first game. Remember that. He lost his first game against Boise State.
Yep.
When he coached at Oregon.
Yeah.
But he turned things around from there. But he has Jordan Speight, a quarterback who couldn't play in Michigan.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Harbaugh let him walk.
Yep.
And so you bring him in and you're trying to run the system that you've run in the past with a quarterback that's not mobile at all, Charlton. The situation that happened with Oregon State, they didn't stand a chance. I mean, it was like Katie bought it door, the lights were out before they even showed up. So but when you look at the sanctity that the Pac-12 has, Charlton, because they play such late games, Eastern Standard Time, players don't get the scrutiny out there that they would get if they were playing prime time here on the Eastern Time Zone.
Yep.
So they're kind of sheltered, the coaches are, as well as the players, but the players also, when they're playing well, Charlton, don't get the accolades that they should. You look at Bryce Love, tremendous runner.
Yep.
That was at Stanford last year, and prior to him, Christian McCaffrey.
Yep.
And so they've had some tremendous players out at Stanford that hasn't gotten the media recognition because they're playing at a late hour, Charlton, and a lot of the media people are gone to bed by halftime.
Yeah, that's a good point. And a lot of people think that Stanford is going to challenge for the Pac-12 North anyway. And flying under the radar is the University of Southern California Trojans. And they don't have the hype behind, the quarterback now. USC's been so successful over the years when they had Heisman Trophy running back calibers and a big offensive line going way back in the day to Munoz. They ran the ball when they had Anthony Davis, when they had Mike Garrett, when they had O.J. Simpson, from Charles White to Marcus Allen. To Reggie Bush, they've always had a strong running game. That's where they made their money. A lot of their quarterbacks have been hyped because that's what you get in Southern California. But I think that team, they got Stanford coming up this week. They get past that game. They got to go beat Texas just for the national exposure, even though Texas won't be ranked. But I think that's a team you can't sleep on. They won the Pac-12 the last 2 years, Big C. But when you look at Georgia, South Carolina, USC, Stanford, Clemson, Texas A&M is a big game down south. Michigan State versus Arizona State this week. We play to win the game. We'll find out this weekend, Big C. What's the biggest game on the national scale? I know it's early, but your thoughts, Big C.
Well, Charlton, you got to look at that Clemson-Texas A&M game. You got a $75 million coach versus the number 2 team in the country, Charlton.
Yeah.
Both of these teams are coming off impressive wins in game one. And so the pressure's on you on the national landscape. As Clemson, being in the ACC, you can't afford to lose. Texas A&M, you're supposed to be building something with one of the highest paid coaches, guaranteed money-wise, in the country.
Yeah.
And so this game takes the national landscape. When we look at that Michigan State-Arizona State game, Johnson, many people won't see it, but Michigan State just escaped by the skin of their teeth last week against Utah State.
Utah State, yeah.
So there's some questions about their defense.
Yeah.
And so that's going to trouble a lot of people when it comes down to that. Now, South Carolina's a team, Charlton, that can challenge in the SEC this year.
Yeah.
So they're a team that's under the radar that can cause some havoc, but it's going to be a very interesting week this weekend in college football.
Yeah, and when you say that Michigan State escaped by the skin of their teeth, there are a lot of Utah State players that are saying they were biting them good old boys. They said you might find some skin on those teeth the way they were calling the game up in the Big Ten country, Big C. So we know that college football is back. One of the greatest things I love about college football is after a loss or after a win, you can go into the media. You can use it on your phone now. You can Google the media for the team that lost, and you'll hear their side of the story, and they always got jobbed. They always got the short end of the call. They got the short end of the stick. They were always cheated. They were always robbed. That's almost exciting as some of the games, Big C, when you think about how the local media will live on every single play, where the mainstream media may just figure out the highlights and they'll go by that. But love that college football is back in the air. Can't get enough of it, Big C. I do want to swing to a couple other sports. Angelique Kerber, Venus Williams face off for the first time since Wimbledon tonight in the U.S. Open. There's something about the heat and humidity in New York. It would be great if they could treat this event kind of like they do up in Toronto when they close the dome, or down in certain other stadiums. I think in Houston they closed the dome. Arizona they closed the dome. It's great to see world-class athletes, but this heat index is not safe for a lot of athletes, especially considering what happened with the young player at Maryland. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, that's going to be Serena Williams-Charlton, and you're so correct about the heat index in New York. I mean, the athletes are the ones who are out there suffering in the heat. I mean, there's not a lot you can do about being hydrated when the temperature on the court is 115, 120 degrees, Charlton.
Yeah.
It is definitely, and if you've ever competed in conditions like that, it is hard on the human body.
Yeah.
And we've seen many athletes have to take extra long breaks, Charlton, because of that. But, you know, you think about the competitive nature of these athletes, but, you know, you also have to look at what you're doing to their organs in this situation, bodies being overheated. We've seen the talk about this with football players, Charlton, keeping the body hydrated, keeping them cooled down. And so they should have that consideration. Why did you spend all that money to put a dome on the place and you're not using it?
Yeah.
And you spoke about the stadium up in Toronto where they closed the roof on it. They have one in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
I mean, Texas keeps their dome closed all the time at Texas Stadium, just like in Houston at Reliance Stadium. I don't think they've ever opened the roof there in Arizona at the University of Phoenix Stadium, Charlton.
No,
so,
I tell you.
So you build these dome stadiums for a reason. Even in Wimbledon, Charlton, when it gets too hot, they domed Wimbledon several years ago.
Yeah.
They closed the top over there at the All English Lawn Club, Charlton. So everyone except for New York needs to understand that, well, they have a sense to understand, Charlton, that the athletes come first.
Yeah. You would think that would be the case, and I would hope that we don't need something bad to happen. Dehydration is a big problem, especially on the high school level, because you don't have the doctors that maybe have $1 million income on the sideline making sure that some of their athletes are being taken care of properly. And just because you don't hear about it as much, you don't hear about players that have a heat stroke and they're rushed to the hospital. You only hear about fatalities. But I know with the heat index being so high and players out there trying to give it their all, I would love them to see, protect the world-class athletes as well as you want to do that to athletes on every level. I would love to see that happen. But, when I think about something too, New York is such a great place for sports. Whether you have the Yankees, whether you have the Mets, you have the Rangers, of course the Jets and the Giants, Madison Square Garden, and the Knicks, of course. But there's something about New York hosting an event that's as great as this great tennis event. But have they dropped the ball? And again, we talk about safety being first. If it's NFL, how do we keep people getting CTE and the head banging? But with the number one media market in the universe in New York City, why are we not hearing about postponing this event or doing it where they have a overhead cover? Do we need someone to actually get physically ill first? Because you can see people struggling, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, there's many athletes. Roger Federer lost last night. Sloane Stephens lost last night, Charlton. And they said, they were bothered by the heat. They just could not compete at the level that they wanted to.
Yep.
And you left this roof open. It's been open all day, Charlton. I'm not understanding what the officials at the Open are trying to, do to the athletes, or even say that, whether the wind is affecting the balls when they're on the court. But, as an athlete, you want to be in the most comfortable physical conditions that you can play in.
Yeah.
And when you're putting them at a hardship, and that's what you're doing when you force them to play in absorbent heat, Charlton, you're putting the athletes at a hardship. And, it's about the fans. You want the fans to be comfortable. You want the fans to see the best competitors.
Yep.
It's not good when all the top-ranked players, Charlton, are knocked out of a tournament. You take last year's winners, they're gone, Charlton. That doesn't boast well for the Open on the female side.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. So hopefully we can have people step in and say, this is not the right thing to do. We got to find a way to fix it. I do want to touch on something else that I think the Oakland A's might be the third best team in the AL, at least. I mean, the way they've had this series with the Yankees over this past weekend, I really love seeing baseball. It'd be great to see the A's get in. But today's the 25th anniversary of Jim Abbott pitching a no-hitter for the Yankees that were just here in the Bay Area. And the great thing about that, the one team that's staying in Oakland, the Oakland A's, thinking about back to Charlie Finley and them good old boys back in the day, they have 47,000 for a Yankee game. The Raiders have a hard time drawing 47,000. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you think about the affiliation between the Yankees and the A's that go back over time, Charlton, they've had so many players that have meant so much to each one of those organizations. You're thinking about Catfish Hunter after winning a World Series with the A's going over to the Yankees.
Yeah.
Followed by Reggie Jackson, Charlton, who went over there and they won World Series also. Reggie became Mr. October.
Yep.
Then the stolen base king, Charlton, of all time, Ricky Henderson.
Yeah.
Spent a stint of his career with the New York Yankees. And to see these teams get together over the weekend, Charlton, bring back a lot of memories of the history between these two great organizations, Charlton, of players moving back and forth. Henderson left and came back to the A's, Charlton, to finish his career. But with the A's playing as well as they've been playing the past couple of months, Charlton, is not just great for the Bay Area, but it's great for baseball.
Yeah.
To see that type of action. And to go back to that point about Jim Abbott, Charlton, being the 25th anniversary of him throwing a no-hitter for the Yankees. Jim Abbott was a player that was born without a right hand, Charlton.
Wow.
And he played at the University of Michigan. That's what's so significant about him throwing that no-hitter in Major League Baseball. Many people wondered, would he ever be able to play at that level? He won a Pan Am gold medal, Charlton, when he came out of the University of Michigan while he's still an amateur.
Yep.
But to go into Major League Baseball and be able to dominate enough to throw a no-hitter, to become part of history, and also, Charlton, to be the only player to do it with one hand. He would take that glove and hold it under his right forearm, Charlton, when he pitched. But just a tremendous athlete with great determination and grit. Congratulations to Jim Abbott on your 25th anniversary of throwing a no-hitter.
Yeah, he's off the hook. He's really amazing. Congratulations to that. And you know what? Also throughout the world in Major League Baseball, San Francisco's at Colorado, and we have the Yankees at Oakland, and then New York Mets at the LA Dodgers. The Dodgers really are coming on strong at the right time. St. Louis at Washington today, Cincinnati at Pittsburgh, Tampa Bay at Toronto. I love that dome that they play up in Toronto. Tampa Bay, Toronto, of course, we mentioned that. Philadelphia at Miami. Kansas City at Cleveland. I love the big C on their helmets. Boston at Atlanta. That's a game that should determine who wins both of their divisions. LA Angels at Texas. Them good old boys down in Texas with that Texas Judges. Chicago at Milwaukee. Detroit at the White Sox. Minnesota at Houston. And Houston can't let off the gas, because the A's are trying to chase them down. They were neck and neck with them not long ago, but Houston's a tough team. Most likely Houston's going to win that division, but I'd love to see the A's try to pound out some type of a wild card. But again, I can't write the A's off either. San Diego at Arizona. So a lot of happening in the sports universe in the world of baseball. Also, Yasiel Puig loses his appeal to begin serving a 2-game ban. And there's a lot of things that happen in the world of sports. And then for the Phillies, Philly Howard announces his retirement. So we know that the world of sports is always great this time of year. This conversion of college football. You have NBA basketball right around the corner, Major League Baseball trying to decide who's going to be in the playoff, the hunt for October. We love that. Tennis is going strong. Golf is making some noise, but not the same kind of noise that the NFL is making. And of course, I think NFL is king, but ratings-wise, I think more people is being challenged now, Big C, by NBA basketball. And speaking of that challenge, I still got to bring this up because out here in the West Coast, I hear a lot of people crying today. They're crying because John Gruden needs some glasses. In the Khalil Mack trade to the Bears, if it hadn't been for Derek Carr holding out, how friendly and aggressive would John Gruden have been reaching out to him to re-sign him? You think about it. Carr had to hold out too. And so far, they got rid of Jack Del Rio, but he did better PR-wise with the Raider organization than Gruden. Not only are the Raiders playing the Monday Night Football against the Rams, their second home game is really outside of the country. But just give me your thoughts, the Mac and the Carr thing. You know, Carr, and I like Derek Carr, he said, we're brothers. Well, his brother got traded, and now they're telling him to toe the company line. We got to move forward. We got to get on. At some point in time, you can tell a coach when he's screwing up. That's what the Dallas Cowboys did when they won the Super Bowl. They told Jerry Jones he was screwing up when he wouldn't sign Emmitt Smith. They didn't say, well, we're going to get over it. No, those good old boys tore the locker room up. Jerry Jones sobered up, signed Emmitt Smith. They won another Super Bowl. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you go back to the Derek Carr negotiations from a couple of years ago, Charlton, it was all over the media with what the Raiders were looking to do with Derek Carr as far as signing an extension after he had a decent second year in the league, Charlton.
Yeah.
They didn't have to go out and sign him to their contract. They could have waited till his third year, which would have been last year. And you saw what the effects of what his third year in the league was, Charlton.
Yeah.
He had fallen off the table quite a bit. But, you know, they were open about giving this young man over $1 million, Charlton. They didn't hold back at all.
No.
And the coach was right there in the middle of the negotiations. John Gruden came in towing a hard line.
Yeah.
When he came to the Raiders. He's like, this is my game. This is my team. Not realizing that the NFL, Charlton, has changed since he left over a decade ago.
Yeah.
It is no longer the league that he used to coach in, Charlton. Even though he sat in a broadcast booth, Charlton, he was removed from the game action.
Yep.
He was removed from the emotion of the game, Charlton. He was removed from the contract negotiations. And you got to look at when he was with the Raiders, Charlton, who did he have to negotiate a contract for? When he got to Tampa Bay, everybody was under contract.
Yep.
The salary cap structure has changed in the past decade. And the salary cap structures keep going up. That's the thing that they don't understand. The Raiders could have took a hit if they had wanted to with Khalil Mack this year, Charlton.
Yeah.
Because the salary cap is going up next year.
Yep.
So the taxes that you would have paid wouldn't have been as bad as what you thought it was.
No.
And that's the reason why the Bears were willing to give him that big contract, because they said the salary structure is going up.
Yeah.
He went to the Bears. The Bears were a top 10 defense in the NFL last year.
Oh, they're really good now.
And if you think about what the Bears have gotten from the Bay Area, Charlton, in the past 2 years, they got their quarterback, Trubisky. Well, you know, we'll see how he turns out this year.
Yeah.
They got Khalil Mack. You know, they got Trubisky from the 49ers in a trade.
Yeah.
They got Khalil Mack from the Raiders in a trade. So they've reaped the benefits of the West Coast in the past 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Now you got to look at the Raiders. Who is going to be their top pass rush? I mean, they had Cliff Averill on the other side, but is he a Khalil Mack? Khalil Mack made All-Pro at 2 different positions.
I know.
Defensive end and at rush end.
Why doesn't Gruden know that? Why doesn't John Gruden know that, Big C?
Well, I think what Gruden is looking at, Charlton, is that he's looking to get to Vegas. And he's looking to put his stamp on Vegas, Charlton, just like we see with all these college coaches coming in, Charlton, and all the preponderance and broadcasters say, well, he has to get his own players in here to establish it. The NFL is a 2 or 3 year thing, Charlton. It's not about 4 years.
Yeah.
You know, players other than quarterbacks generally don't stay around much longer than that, Charlton, because they get priced out. But Khalil Mack was one of those once-in-a-generation defensive players, Charlton, that can come in and dominate. It would be like Denver getting rid of Von Miller. Who do you replace him with? You make a trade.
Yeah.
You make a trade for an all-pro player, Charlton.
Yeah.
What do you get in return?
Well,
you're gonna, I'm gonna get some draft picks. Okay, look at the Raiders' last 5 years of first-round draft picks.
Yeah.
Tell me which one of them is a star, Charlton, or which one of them was a star. It was Khalil Mack. Of the last 5 first-round draft picks, only Khalil Mack was all-pro, Charlton.
Yep.
So that lets you know where the organization is.
Well, also, you mentioned that thing with Von Miller. Why wouldn't the Broncos get rid of him? Because John Elway is a GM played quarterback. And as a quarterback, what do? They point the offensive lineman and the tailback and running back behind them. Find Mack, he's on the left side. Find Mack, he's on the right side. Find Mack, he's in the middle. They know, Elway knows the guy that's going to eat his lunch. Like them guys at Michigan State that were biting the guys at Utah State. They know who's going to bite him. So that's why Elway knew, we need this guy. That's the guy that used to chase me down. You know, Gruden never played at that level. So Gruden's doing it with his ego. But I want to ask you this question. Because sometimes you just want people to tell you the truth, whether they like you or not. I think Charles Haley, he wasn't liked by Seifert. Seifert got rid of him when he urinated. I'll say, I gotta say it the bourgeois way. He inculcated on his car in the Bay Area. Okay, they call urinated on his car. But them good old boys down in Texas, they went to the owner and said, Jerry Jones, if you don't sign this guy named Emmitt Smith, we're gonna tear you up. Okay, and Jerry Jones sobered up and signed him. Who in the organization for the Raiders can go to Gruden and Davis and say, you're not your father, but this guy got rid of the modern-day Jerry Rice, the modern-day Dick Butkus, the modern-day, Lawrence Taylor, for what? Doesn't make any sense. I want to throw it down to the Deep South. Everyone would be looking at Prescott in Dallas this year, even though the Cowboys added no offensive weapons for him. And they're still paying your friend Tony Romo to sit in the press box with Jim. What's that guy's name? Jim from Carmel. You guys go golfing sometime. What's his name? Jim Nance. That's his name. You got a lot of friends, Big C. So they're giving Romo more money than the guy they didn't get to back up Prescott on the O-line, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, it's amazing. Everybody is scrutinizing Dak Prescott all season. Well, when you look at all the teams around him, Charlton, even in his own division, look what Philadelphia did for Carson Wentz last year. They went out and got everybody they could. They got him 2 running backs. They got him 2 receivers. They got him another tight end, Charlton. They loaded him up with offensive weapons. The Dallas Cowboys, since Dak Prescott has arrived there, has done nothing but tear down that offense.
Yep.
They got rid of one of the top receivers in Dez Bryant. They got rid of the top tight end in Jason Witten.
Yep.
They brought in nobody. In the draft, they have not drafted a tight end. They have not drafted a receiver. Cole Beasley, and I'm not knocking Cole. Cole plays with his heart.
He plays hard.
But he's not threatening anybody.
No.
Look at the Dallas Cowboys offense. When you can say, somebody who can take the top off. They talked a lot about that with Odell Beckham in New York, that he can take the top off of defense, that he can threaten it at 6. Dallas has nobody that you can say can get us 6 in one play. No. You don't see anybody on their offense that scares any defensive back in the NFL. That's what Dak Prescott has to worry about. And here's a guy, Charlton, he's making $800,000 this year.
Wow.
Tony Romo is being paid by the Dallas Cowboys $9 million.
That's egregious.
Think about that. Your starting quarterback salary is $800,000.
Yep.
And the guy who's going to be calling some of your games, you're paying him $9 million.
Yeah.
That's where the Dallas Cowboys are. So if you think Jerry Jones needs to sober up, he needs to walk away from the Cowboys for a day and let him bring some talent in to help out Dak Prescott.
Sometimes you do that and you go find somebody who knows more that can maybe help out in that situation. Those are basic facts. Big C, when you look at the AFC East, New England, New York, Miami, Buffalo, who would you take as starting quarterback? I know a lot of these franchises now, they're putting all their money on a college kid that didn't win. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, let's look at it this way. You got Tom Brady, New England. I think he's a starter still. I haven't checked lately.
He's not playing under Gruden, so he's not coached by John Gruden. He's probably still with the team, Big C.
Okay, you got the Jets. They got a quarterback. How many wins did he have in the NFL last year, Charlton?
Not a lot.
Okay,
none.
We'll go with that. Go with that. 0.
Yeah.
Miami. I think Tannehill will be the starting quarterback. Didn't play any games last year. How many wins did he have last year, Charlton?
He didn't play any games. Let me Google that. That would be 0.
Okay, so we got two teams with 0 wins at quarterback.
Yeah.
Let's just go up to Buffalo. Let's go up there for Nathan's sake.
It's cold up there, Big C. It's cold in Buffalo.
Cold in Buffalo. So they got a quarterback that started the game and threw 5 interceptions in the first quarter. So technically, he had as many wins as Tannehill and Donald.
Yeah.
So that would make it how many wins?
That'd be, hold on, let me, 0, Big Z.
Okay. So let's say Tom Brady had 12 regular season wins last year.
Yeah.
You got 3 other quarterbacks in the division that combined for how many wins?
Hold on, let me Google. Hold on. 0, Big Z.
And so this is what the NFL is.
Yeah.
Just because you're a prototypical looking guy.
Yeah.
Ethnically.
Yep.
is that you deserve to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. Now, as you always say, you hope all the guys are best.
I wish them all well. Yeah.
Everybody says he should have been the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah.
Nathan Peterman, the kid that they say can't miss, Josh Allen, couldn't beat out the guy who threw 5 interceptions in 10 minutes. Okay?
Yep.
That lets you know where he is. Ryan Tannehill normally gets hurt coming out of the locker room.
Yeah.
So I guess if you're betting on the NFC East, Charlton, you might want to make a wager on New England. Everybody's saying that Brady, they should have kept Garoppolo around because Brady doesn't have anything left.
Wow.
He just goes out and wins 12 games every year, and every other year ends up in the Super Bowl in his career, Charlton.
Yeah. Well,
I guess all the proponents are experts out there, Charlton, because you got 3 quarterbacks that didn't win a game in the NFL last year in your division. And you're picking against Tom Brady?
Yeah. That's funny, but sometimes people do funny things. So we've covered the world all over the universe, from tennis. We've covered the world of baseball. We've covered the world of college football, NFL. There are a lot of good things happening in the sports universe. I can't wait until this weekend gets here. A lot of more good things happening, especially Thursday Night Football. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Bundini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, tonight will be Serena Williams' 15th consecutive appearance in the quarterfinals. The second most all-time in the women's event, Charlton, on the tennis circuit.
Wow.
And, this is a year after giving birth, Charlton, that she has risen back to the top of the game. It hasn't been a comeback for her, Charlton. All she did was pick up where she left off, which has been great for tennis.
Yeah, it's been great for tennis. It's been great for women. It's been great for sports. It's been great for every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. Follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever any excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.